What is this? Oh, no.
Joining us now is Times of Israel journalist.
Do we like Assad or no? No. No good human being likes Assad. That being said, it's naive to assume that whoever comes after Assad would necessarily be better for the citizenry there. Maybe he would be. I know there's people are linking this one dude who apparently read Why Nations Fail a bunch and now talks about institutions. I don't know if that's real or if he just says that because it sounds nice to the West or what their role would actually look like. I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion about that. But Assad is a bad dude, okay? He's a bad dude. Saddam Hussein was a bad dude, though. And ISIS was probably worse.
Haviv Rettiger. Haviv, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And so the audience understands kind of where you are in the spectrum when it comes to Israeli politics. I had said at the top of the show that you were kind of a couple ticks to the right of Netanyahu, but correct me if I'm, where would you say that you are kind of politically, just so people have the proper context for evaluating?
I'm a journalist. I'm objective from Mars, obviously.
Same yes. Right here, yeah.
I am a big fan of some ideas on the left. Still think two-state solution is doable. I think, in fact, everything else that I've ever heard is less likely and less doable. And on a lot
I have the best idea. It's the box of nuclear weapons. It's my idea is the best. We should just do it. Make me the ambassador. You know what? Honestly, if there was ever a time in my life where I could be a foreign ambassador, it'd probably be in the Trump administration. I just need like $999 million more so I could be relevant for them. Go to the Middle East, talk to Israel, talk to the PLA, say, hey, listen, you guys have to, or the PNA, you guys have to come together and make a deal on a two-state solution. And if you can't reach an agreement, whichever one of you is willing to give more gets all the nukes, and you can just go to town on the other side, and then boom, there you go. That's it.
Those social issues and cultural issues, I'm pretty liberal. Specifically on the question of Iran and on the question of Israeli capabilities and on the question of how this war has been handled, it is my view that the Biden administration's humanitarianism, constantly pressuring the Israelis.
You meant the PA? They're the PA or the PNA. It's interchangeable. The Palestinian Authority or the Palestinian National Authority. I've seen both.
To slow down has hurt everybody. Mostly Palestinian civilians, definitely the hostages in the dungeons in Gaza, and Israeli soldiers have died because for periods of 4 months or more, the Israeli army had to stop in Gaza because they couldn't go into Rafah, things like that. There is a way to prosecute this war, and to do it slowly is the worst possible way. Israel has escalation dominance vis-a-vis Iran, and the only way to avoid a destructive war in Lebanon, I argued 10 months ago, is to have an exchange with Iran. So where does that put me? I'm very hawkish.
Soldiers of the Syrian Arab Army seen defecting earlier today, with them taking off their uniforms and putting on civilian clothes. Jesus.
Coming for you.
This will be re-uploaded with a logo.
The whole world.
What are you excited for in the Streamer Awards? What are you excited to see today in the Streamer Awards?
I'm excited to see,
Destiny.
you know, because
I'm
I've
actually down
said
for
this
that.
before.
He owes me.
You know, I lose
in the Streamer Awards.
I'm excited to see,
Destiny.
you know, because
I'm
I've
actually
said
down
this
for that.
before.
He owes
me.
You know, I lose to Hassan a lot in basketball when we play. I'm really excited to see him lose.
Destiny owes me.
Okay.
Actually,
the energy.
that's fair.
Well, Ted.
I want to see people win.
Destiny owes me Ed.
I want to see someone lose.
But I get to stream it.
A lot of people are going to lose tonight.
That is true. A lot of people say, I don't know.
I don't know why he would say that, but I guess, yeah, technically it is true I do own him, because last time when he sucked me off, I didn't do anything in favor. In a video game. Okay.
In that sense, but I don't think I'm actually on the right.
All right, let's go with that.
No.
So we put up this first element from the report over at Drop Site News, but there's been a lot of reporting in.
Oh God, Drop Site is their new adventure. After he left The Intercept, I don't even know why. Because Greenwald left, or because somebody was going to pull funding, or because it was bankrupt or insolvent or something. I don't remember, but.
In the Israeli press and elsewhere about the kind of rise of looting going on in Gaza at the hands of gangs. As we report over at Drop Site, the kind of Hamas-led security forces are now launching kind of a counterattack, ambushed a group of hijackers who killing at least 20 of them, it appears. And so the argument that's being made by, and you've seen the reporting in Haaretz, I'm curious if Times of Israel has done some reporting on this as well, but the argument that Hamas is also making is that ever since Israel took over Rafah, looting within that area has dramatically increased, and that the IDF calls it the looting zone. The United Nations yesterday.
Oh wait, is he claiming the IDF is looting? That is doing all the looting? Is that the claim? Gaza Security Force came. Oh,
said that Kogat urged a last-minute shift in the route that these 109 aid trucks took, and it put them right into the sights of the hijackers. So there are a lot of suggestions, both in Israeli media and from Gazans, that there's some collaboration going on between
that they're allowing
Israel
looting to happen.
and these gangs, these well-organized gangs, are now hijacking trucks. What's your understanding of what's going on there?
Well, there's so much to unpack there.
Yeah.
The United Nations lost something like 97 trucks.
Mm-hmm.
The United Nations, out of a convoy of, I believe, 109.
Yeah.
The United Nations cannot distribute aid in Gaza. There are 900 truckloads worth of aid sitting on the Gazan side of the Kerem Shalom crossing that they simply can't distribute. When the UN is asked by journalists why, what it would take for them to distribute, they say Israeli protection. And when they then say to them, well, why doesn't the Israeli army accompany the convoys? They then say, well, they can't accompany the convoys because that'll make the convoys a target of the other side. There is no force, no criminal gang, no clan, no family, these are all these terms used to describe a real social reality on the ground in Gaza. There is no force big enough to take 97 trucks out of the hands of the UN, except Hamas in the certain areas where the Israelis aren't operating. So the very idea that 97 of these trucks are lost, the UN says something about it, doesn't say who it is, doesn't say who it suspects it is, doesn't say if these items have shown up on the black market in Gaza, being sold by certain parties or other parties. It's all very, very strangely vague. And then there's this argument that, in fact, it's not Hamas. It can't be anyone but Hamas. Hamas is still sufficiently strong in Gaza to not allow anyone else to come in.
How the fuck does Hamas still have organization and shit in Gaza? The fuck? What's going on over there?
The irony is that a few months back, I think probably 5 months ago, something like that, the Israeli army tried to build out a separate aid distribution system working with these clans, which are just an important social structure in Gazan society that also sometimes built out organized crime syndicates. And the two aid convoys that worked with the Israeli army publicly, this is known, and this is something that nobody has hidden, were intercepted and massacred by Hamas forces. And so Israel hasn't actually trusted the clans to be capable of actually doing the distribution and holding their own in Gaza. There is no one in Gaza who could have taken those trucks except Hamas. Therefore, my conclusion, I have not heard evidence. I've seen a lot of this desperate speculation, hoping to avoid the very idea that Hamas might be the bad guys in any scenario. But I haven't actually seen any evidence that suggests that anyone else even remotely has the capability. And so falling back on these conspiracies of the Israelis would love the aid to get distributed in ways that totally bypass Hamas.
Wait. Ugh.
Stand before you as So I stand before you as a man who simply wants some semblance of justice for the Palestinians. I urge you not to lean into nihilism and succumb to helplessness, because you do not need the academic pedigree to know right from wrong. All you need is your moral compass.
Oh God, it's gonna be the... No, never mind.
As someone who has seen the Palestine question evolve over my past 10 years of public advocacy,
don't do it.
I never would have imagined international organs demand legal restitution from America's most valuable asset.
Wow.
After all, there are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happen.
Wow.
Thank you.
So brave.
It would get a lot of pressure off of them, and nobody quite knows how, because Hamas is sufficiently strong to continue disrupting the aid.
Emily has a question in a second. I'm just curious. Yasser Abu Shabab is the leader of the hijacking group that
Jesus, what a
that
name.
Hamas claims to have sent its security forces to ambush and attack. He was killed in this attack. What's the theory for why the security forces launched this ambush of these hijackers if the hijackers were actually Hamas?
That there's some chance that they were piecing together some kind of an organization that was capable of working with the Israelis, or that they needed somebody to massacre to make this case.
So,
And it's more likely. It's more likely than that 97 trucks were taken by those 20 people. It's more likely than that there is a clan nobody's ever heard of before.
well, you just mentioned something interesting in your answer about how Hamas is still, I think you said, sufficiently strong. And I think that's a really important point. And I want to ask, I probably disagree with the argument, but is that part of, because I think there are some hawkish people who will say, Hamas has been basically vanquished and destroyed. And that seems to me a dishonest argument.
Jesus.
There has been a lot of destruction, but Hamas has.
Destiny should be invited to speak at Cambridge, not Hassan. You're not really technically I don't think you're really invited to speak at the college, by the college. It's basically any group or any college that has student unions that do any type of thing like that can invite external speakers. So when I went to Yale, I wasn't invited by the school administration of Yale to do a thing. It was just the political group there that had a group on campus inviting me. So my guess is for the Cambridge thing, there's a political forum or something, a debate group or a politics school group that invited Hassan to go and do their thing for him. So if they want me there, they just have to reach out.
Reconstituted itself in northern Gaza, for example, and is still there. It's still in dealing with infrastructure and all of those sort of a vacuum, obviously. So who else would fill it but Hamas? Is this part of your argument as to why the humanitarianism, as you put it, of the Biden administration is insufficient and has been cruel, as you put it earlier, to the people of the Palestinians, the people of Gaza, because it sort of drags the conflict out longer than otherwise it could have been?
Yeah, the best way I think to think about this is to distinguish the Lebanon situation from the Gaza situation. In Lebanon, Israel's supreme interest is at some point pretty soon to end it. And the reason is that it achieved a tremendous amount in Lebanon in terms of weakening Hezbollah, shattering Hezbollah, and at incredibly low cost. And as it sticks around and as it expands the war and as it maybe goes deeper and as Lebanon itself has no other, Israel will start paying higher cost and for much lower return. And so right now there is a real ceasefire negotiation process that the Israelis are interested in. Hezbollah took such a blow that Hezbollah is interested in. Hezbollah's patrons in Iran feel like they're on their back feet and they're interested in. So there's a real likelihood.
As much as we hate Netanyahu, the things he's done are kind of impressive, not going to lie. If I was a Zionist, that would be my guy. Yeah, probably. I imagine Netanyahu's supporters. My guess is that it's climbed over the past several months. But I mean, this is also the unfortunate reality of not being stronger as a country and not being more resolute when it comes to helping our allies around the world stand up to people that are bullying them, right? Or even our friends around the world. So if you're Israel and you've had to deal with this war and you've seen the U.S. kind of telling you hey, chill, or, whatever, blah, blah, blah. They're okay, we'll do whatever. And then Israel looks up to Ukraine and they're okay, well, that's a country that, the U.S. is supposed to kind of make Russia chill. And you wouldn't imagine that a country could just be literally fucking invaded with nobody doing fuck all around the world. And that's fucking Ukraine, okay? All of Europe and then the U.S. really, truly has a far greater vested interest in protecting Ukrainians from being fucked, right? Well, if they won't even protect fucking Ukraine from an actual formal country invading them, obviously there's no reason or Israel would expect anybody in the West to help them if they were getting fucked with people. So, I mean, it's just further drives for a kind of Israeli militancy or Zionist control. I don't know what the fuck you want to call it, yeah.
Every one of the parties wants it, but they're trying to shape how it looks and how they define the story of it for a ceasefire. The problem that Israel has in Gaza, the security problem Israel has in Gaza, is very, very simple. There is no other rest of Gaza other than Hamas. In other words, in Lebanon, there's a lot of other factions and groups and political organizations and even kind of militias. And there's the Lebanese army, which has refused to engage the Israelis because they know Israel's at war with Hezbollah and not with Lebanon. All of that other rest of the polity that can step in to fill the vacuum doesn't exist in Gaza. There is only Hamas. And Israel adopted a doctrine kind of learned from Afghanistan. The American mistake in Afghanistan, part of the American mistake was something called the clear and hold doctrine, which is that they cleared, a valley. They took the valley, they cleared the valley, and then they held it with a Marine detachment or an Army detachment so that the
So I guess you love war then? Yeah.
Taliban couldn't regroup there. What that ended up creating was many, many thousands of targets for the guerrillas all over Afghanistan. It ended up being a major source of pain and a major obstacle to America achieving its goals in Afghanistan. So Israel has the opposite of that in Gaza. Hamas is buried underground in 500 kilometers of tunnels. It spent 17 years building, and it's the single biggest thing Palestinians have ever built. And Hamas bent Gaza's entire economy to building these tunnels. And in 13 months of war, not a single civilian has been documented being allowed into the tunnels for safety. And so Israel's goal is to get Hamas out of those tunnels, to engage them and to destroy them. How do you do that? You take an area with Hamas, and then you pull out, and Hamas comes back, and then you take that area again. And so literally everywhere in Gaza, you've seen 3, 4, 5 Israeli entries, and each time an Israeli pullout to kind of reverse the clear and hold problem. So right now what we're talking about is a Gaza in which Hamas has sections of its organization still underground, sections of its organization that come up and retake control. No one else who can fill that gap. There's no serious organization with guns and popular support of any kind, even in small areas of Gaza, that can fill the gap. There is only Hamas. I haven't described to you the solution. I've just described to you the problem that nobody has a solution for. Not Biden, not the left, not the right, not Netanyahu, not progressives in America. Nobody quite knows what takes over Gaza after Hamas. And let me just say one last sentence about that, because this is fundamental. If Hamas can't be removed from Gaza, nobody knows how to rebuild. Nobody knows how to push the ceasefire forward. You can't dump $100 billion on Gaza and actually have it rebuilt if Hamas is the one passing out the money. So Gaza is a huge problem, and Hamas is the name of that problem, and there's no perfect solution for it. What the Israelis are hoping for is a long degradation war. It's going to be 2 years, 3 years, and eventually Hamas will slowly be degraded enough that other solutions can come to play.
So the United States eventually said, you know what, why don't we just withdraw from Afghanistan? Hamas is saying that if Israel withdraw from Gaza, it will release the hostages.
What is that comparison? Okay.
Why not take that deal?
Why not take the deal that you end the war and release the hostages?
Yeah.
Hamas has not ever said that. It said this, by the way, the week after October 7. I mean, it said it immediately. No war. We're fine. We're totally fine. Here's all your hostages back, but totally end to the war. There's simply 2 points. First of all, that's not true. Hamas has always added massive.
It's only for like 10 years or whatever, right? It's just like a temporary ceasefire.
Other stipulations having to do with the West Bank, having to do with prisoners, including prisoners who are mass murderers in Israeli prisons and by the thousands. There's never been a Hamas statement that it said, just let's end it. Just let's end the war. Go back to October 6th. Nothing happened.
Well, they've said they would accept the Biden.
Something.
They've said they would accept the framework that was put through by Netanyahu's war cabinet and then announced by Biden in July, right? Didn't they say they would accept that?
It's an interesting thing. First of all, that's a very temporary, tiny little deal that leaves most of the hostages still in Hamas's hands.
Oh yeah, because that was only for like 7% of them or something, right? Or wasn't that was like for a very small number too? Oh, it sucks when you're arguing with a guy who knows the fucking the underlying material. What a horrible feeling. Oh, this guy fucking he knows what? Really?
So that's first of all. Second of all, and that they have occasionally leaked to the. Secondly, we don't actually know. We know a lot of things the Qataris said they said. We know a lot of things the Egyptians claimed they might have said at some point, probably. We know all this stuff from sort of unsubstantiated leaks that actual officials won't confirm. There has never been, I'm a huge critic of Netanyahu. I think Netanyahu's fundamental strategy led to October 7, and I think he has led since October 7 fundamentally while politicking. He launched his political survival campaign on October 8th, and I feel betrayed by him as my prime minister. But there has never been a Hamas deal for him to say no to. On all the hostages. There's been a deal on 30 hostages in exchange for 42 days. If you pull out of the Philadelphia corridor, big complicated question, happy to get into it if that's interesting. But this idea that there's an end to the war and all the hostages come back, There has never from Hamas been a deal like that on the table. And even things that come even in the general ballpark of that have been Qatari statements that nobody has ever been able to confirm. When Hamas had a working, functioning leadership, namely Sinwar, it would have been entirely possible to produce that Hamas statement. It no longer has that. Is Mohammed Sinwar his brother, the guy in charge? Nobody quite knows. So there simply isn't such a deal on the table. And the idea that you would pull out and let Hamas come back in and just retake Gaza now, and by the way, have this war again in 3 years or 5 years, and never rebuild Gaza. I mean, truly, you can think the Israelis are monsters. It doesn't change the fundamental problem of Hamas. It really doesn't change it. So if you don't have a solution to how to install something after Hamas, or how to remove Hamas sufficiently or degrade it sufficiently to put something else in, it doesn't really matter what the Israelis do. There is no day after until that can happen.
It feels like the Israeli plan, and tell me if you think this.
Wait, is this poll real? Are elections administered freely in the United States? Republican voters only. November of 2024. Oh, I read this in the reverse. Jesus. Okay. 97% said yes. Or 93%, 87%. I was going to say, Jesus Christ. Oh, but that's good. Okay. We've restored faith in our democracy since Trump won. Good job, guys. Election confidence among Republicans surges after Trump's win. Democrats fell to 84%. Not good, guys. Still 5 points higher than the Republicans, though. I wonder if they, when they ask this question, it must be, this is how it's stated exactly. I wonder if like Republicans are saying, no, they're not free because they don't do voter ID. Or if Democrats are saying like, no, they're not free because they don't have, because of gerrymandering or some shit, I wonder. Oh no, wait, hold on, wait. Oh wait, holy fuck, I'm sorry. Why did they flip this? Wait, I just got mind fucked. Hold on, I'm sorry. I read this completely wrong again. Jesus, okay, sorry. Are elections administered freely in the United States? Republicans in November of 2020, no was 79%. They switched it to up and down. Okay. No was 79%. And then November of 2024, no was only 7%. Jesus Christ. Okay. Holy fuck. Oh my God. Okay. Holy shit. Did I read the Democrats? Okay, the Democrats said yes, 94%, and then it fell 10 points to yes, 84%. Okay. Jesus Christ. Holy fuck. You know what a thing I'm trying to figure out is, though? You know what I don't understand? I've been thinking about things like this a lot lately. These have been like mind fucking me. Is trying to figure out what the fuck anybody means when they say anything. Like, what's happening? So Republicans gather around Trump, and then they say they want to fight against the deep state. Okay. Trump is a billionaire. That's kind of weird. But maybe he's like a billionaire outsider because he's fought with everybody. At least I can follow that. But then he partners up with Elon Musk, who's literally the richest man in the world. It feels like you're kind of like, you know how they're like, when you partner Hunter Biden, you lose all your credibility, which is bullshit. I feel like with partnering with Elon Musk, you kind of do lose all your, like, this is literally the richest man in the world who sells government contracts for like security related industries. But not just that, you have like 9+ billionaire people running your cabinet. How is this not the deep state? Like, so the question is like, what did you mean when you said deep state? Or what did you mean when you talked about lobbyists? Or what did you mean? Because I'm trying to figure out what did that map onto? Because here's another like weird thing. Are elections administered freely in the United States? No, 79%. I don't believe Republicans believed that, right? I don't think Republicans actually thought the elections were rigged or not fair, because if that was the case, why would they vote again? Why would you go and vote if you think it's all rigged anyway? So what is actually happening here? Like, what's being said or what's being stated? What's going on? I don't understand what's being said. Like, I just don't understand what's being said. I don't understand what the poll. I don't know what they're tracking. I don't know. Like, is it like I'm gonna go vote even though I know it's rigged? Like, really? I'm so confused. Are you gonna go back to gaming someday? What have you learned from the Federalist Papers? Hamilton writes too flowery.
This is an accurate description of it. It feels like the Israeli plan at this point is these kind of ongoing, what you'd call occupation / intervention in different areas. Go into particular areas, push the people out, leave there, people come back, go back in, combined with watching and maybe facilitating Gaza turn into a warring faction of clans against clans and gangs against gangs, which then a divided Gaza then is less of a threat to Israel, and that you just live to fight another day endlessly rather than kind of settle on a long-term solution of coexistence. Is that what you see actually happening? Put aside what people want, it just feels like that's where it's going.
Yeah, I mean, you phrase that in a way that suggests this is the Israeli plan. That might be kind of what everything defaults to, right, because nobody...
Right, because maybe we can make progress in thinking about it by setting aside what the, quote, plan is and just talking about what's actually going to happen.
What is actually happening is...
علو شيء مبروك التسريح تسريح جماعي كبير بعد ما سقط النظام تسريح جماعي الله حيو امو الله حيو استراد المزي استراد المزي 2024 انتاج الامه الجيش العربي السوري يوم شد التاريخ شوف التاريخ يوم الاحد قديش 12 8 سجلوه عنكم سجلوا معلم.
Apparently they're saying, fuck this, we're going home. Shit is fucked. Syrian regime soldiers in Damascus's Mizah are leaving their positions and saying the regime has fallen. Damn, imagine if, I'm jumping so far ahead, but like a relatively stable Syria that's like relatively friendly-ish, or at least neutral-ish towards Israel and the United States. What does that mean for Lebanon? Like, is there a possibility that Lebanon can finally get their country back? Because I feel like that puts Hezbollah in a really weird position. It's not happening as long as the Golan Heights are occupied, and Israel is rightfully never letting go of that. Has Syria even asked for the Golan Heights back? Am I making this up? I thought that Israel had tried to talk to Syria in the past, and Syria's like, I don't want this. Fuck you. We're killing all of you. I'm never just getting the Golan Heights back. It's going to be your whole fucking country, motherfucker. But I could be wrong. I don't remember. Syria was so unstable in its foundation, and then I think it was it Rabin who wanted to try to talk to, I think he ditched talks with Hafez. I don't remember when Hafez died. That sounds, yeah, and it was just too late, and Israel botched this. But I don't know, I think it's, yeah, oh, they offered it back in 2006. Maybe they did. But I thought when Israel offered it back, Syria was like, fuck you. But who knows? I don't know. I don't even know what Israel would do. How many people live in the Golan Heights? Is it 500,000? And before, I'm super off on this. 40 to 50,000. Fuck that then. Just kick them out. Bring them back. They could pull out of this place. Although, imagine for formal peace with Syria. Do you think, would Israel pull all of the settlers out of the Golan Heights for formal peace with Syria? That we're like jumping so far ahead of like, would that even be on the table? I wonder if they would. I have no idea. That would be insane though. That would be crazy. But yeah, I don't know. Okay.
Is that when you remove Hamas, half of the Gazan population is under 18. And Hamas ran the schools for 17 years. When the idea of removing Hamas from Gaza is a much deeper and more profound problem than the strict military problem, which Hamas built Gaza into a battlefield for a war in which it would be impossible to remove it at a scale never before seen in the history of warfare. There's nothing like those tunnels. The Viet Cong built quite a few tunnels.
You should run with that. Do you remember this theory? Gave me a whole thing that I should try that, actually. That the next time I go to a debate, what I should do is I should prove that there was a conspiracy on January 6th and that Trump did do everything, but they're actually right about more than they realize.
Oh.
But like they're right, the conclusion is wrong. So like for instance, that Ray Epps was working as a Fed, but the head of the FBI was a Trump appointee, and Ray Epps was a Fed that was working like in a Trump division of the FBI, that there were a lot of instigators on the ground, that Trump was trying to get people instigated to go in and start an insurrection, that there were actually police officers that were leading people to the Capitol, but they were Trump's men. They said that like one thing that would be funny is to go and construct like an alternative conspiracy theory, because you could probably support that with stronger evidence. True.
I don't think it's 20% of what Hamas built in Gaza in a much smaller area. And so Hamas produced a situation in which getting it out requires essentially this kind of war. I don't mean to suggest that every single Israeli airstrike is legitimate. I'm just saying there isn't fundamentally a different kind of war if you actually want to remove Hamas from Gaza, and Hamas made sure of it.
No, what's the gain for Israel? They lose the strategic high ground and upset their population so Hezbollah can line up artillery over half of North Israel. First of all, fuck strategic high ground, motherfucker. Okay, it's fucking 2024. All right, we're not lobbing rockets from shitty mortars. Okay, we got airplanes. We got airplanes, motherfucker. Okay, we got airplanes. Israel can bomb fucking into the deepest parts of Iran. They can blow shit up on top of the Golan Heights if they need to. Number one. Number two, what would be the gain? Peace with Syria symbolically would just be insane, right? That's like their three largest opponents in 67 and 73. You've shored up alliances now with Egypt, Jordan, and Syria. Those are your three big dudes. Like that's it. It's over. That's the end of the Arab-Israeli conflict. Now it's just the Palestinian stuff. But then also, I mean, it also just like tees up the region for a lot of other shit. But I mean, who the fuck knows? It might be that Syria collapses into a chaos state right now anyway, so who the fuck knows?
And there's the deeper point, which is the educational, religious sort of narrative point. Hamas tells Gazans that they are not suffering for nothing. They are suffering because they are the vanguard of a great Islamic restoration after centuries of weakness, and the great war against the Jews is that fundamental war for the restoration of all Islam. To a lot of Gazans who hate Hamas, there's also a deep appreciation of that story of dignity. And so when you actually start to map out what it would mean to remove Hamas from Gaza, it turns out to be this immense military problem, an immense cultural problem, an immense religious problem.
You sound like people saying Ukraine should have given Russia Crimea. I don't know how you even remotely make that comparison, but okay. At Destiny, governments making peace with Israel doesn't equate to peace with Arabs, since Arab populations are way too disconnected from the government. That's cool, and you can say that, but that's not how it worked with Egypt. That's not how it worked with Jordan.
A problem that Jews can't do. Jews are not going to go into Gaza and talk to Gazans about their religion. But that's also fundamental to removing Hamas from Gaza. And so there has to be in Gaza a much larger sense of the scale of the problem and of the desperate need for the problem. If Hamas remains in Gaza, Gaza will remain destroyed no matter what Israel does. Truly, I mean, if the Israeli prime minister becomes the head of the most far-left progressive party in the Israeli Knesset, there is nothing you can...
What do you think would happen if Israel just blew up the Al-Aqsa Mosque? You know what the real mindfuck would be? Imagine if Israel did do that. They blew up the Al-Aqsa Mosque just to finally say to all the Arabs, fuck off, this is our place forever. And then they start excavating and they actually don't find the second temple underneath. So now everybody is completely and totally ass-pained. Jews actually were fighting over a stupid area the whole time because the second temple's gone. It was just some dumb random fucking wall that they found. And now the Arabs are mad because their holiest place ever got blown up. And now it's just fucking chaos.
Do for Gaza as long as Hamas rules it. And so how does that day after?
First temple, not the, my bad, the first one. Wait, the second temple? Wait, I thought there was a second one built, and it's supposed to be Al-Aqsa Mosque on the second one. No? Or am I wrong? I don't remember. Fire.
Look, what is the role of the Arab states? What is the role of the Muslim world? What is the role of building out a Gaza that's different? Lebanon has a much better future ahead of it because even though it's been taken over by Hezbollah in the name of Iran, if Israel can sufficiently weaken Hezbollah, there is the rest of Lebanon that can come in and fill a gap. Who is that in Gaza? How do you build that in Gaza? And we're talking here about the best case scenario that everyone actually wants that. I hope everyone wants that. I hope it isn't just, in the West moralizing and in the Muslim world just hating Jews. I hope it's actually about Gaza, and we can put together some kind of an international coalition that frankly moves in and massively, seriously builds and de-radicalizes Gaza. And then there's a real powerful argument for the Israelis getting out as fast as possible. But until there's even that awareness, you're just asking the Israelis to hand Gaza back to Hamas. And that's just something that the Israeli public won't allow to happen, never mind the politicians.
Well, in control room, I'm about to queue up E3, which we can put up this on the screen, and then E4. So Bernie Sanders and Ryan will probably have something to say about this as well, is pushing to block U.S. arms sales to Israel. There's going to be a vote in the Senate on that today, right, Ryan? That's what Bernie is queuing up today. And on that note, I want to turn to this clip of Tulsi Gabbard on CBN, Christian Broadcast Network, talking about some of the deeper ideological questions that we were just talking about here. Let's roll this clip. It's E4.
You mentioned American taxpayer dollars. Is there a difference between funding Israel and funding Ukraine? How do you see?
No, both of them are equally bad and evil. Wait, what would Tulsi Gabbard's position be on Israel? It has to be negative, right? That'd be my guess, right? No foreign funding.
That exactly. I'm just curious about that.
Yes, there's a
because
very
radical Islamic extremism is what Israel.
Oh, wait, is Tulsi Gabbard a big Israel simp? Let's find out.
Israel's on the front lines of every day.
There's a very real difference, and there will always be with every unique challenge that we face and that unique decision that must be made. Using those two examples, are we better off increasing and escalating tensions and waging this proxy war against Russia, of which Ukraine has never had any shot at winning? When you look at what's happening in the war between Israel and Hamas, and it is a war between Israel and Hamas, a radical Islamist terrorist group. This is just the latest front of this war that's been waged for a very long time between these radical Islamist terrorist groups that have been waging it militarily and ideologically. This is in our best interest, as well as all freedom-loving countries and civilization, to take on what is the greatest short and long-term threat to freedom. He's afraid of being called an Islamophobe, and it's the same reason why he is not taking
Wait, why would she not support Ukraine then? What a weird position.
seriously the need to defeat Hamas.
Tulsi Gabbard obviously recently nominated to be Donald Trump's director of national intelligence, and the host asked her, Joe Biden just recently pausing weapon shipments to Israel. How do you see that? He's on the side of Hamas at this point, and obviously we're talking about this clip as Bernie Sanders is pushing to block U.S. arms sales to Israel. And so I guess my question is, with this perspective that there's a deep ideological root to what we see in Gaza and sort of Hamas filling this leadership vacuum, infrastructure vacuum over and over again, is the response to that further military action? I understand obviously why that's an option, but is that ultimately, is it continuously justified if the root problem is a deep ideological conviction that is like worsened by the military action in some ways? That's obviously
okay. Somebody said I've watched a video of this guy before and he's based, and he sounds based so far. Come with me. Come to the Destiny omniliberal side and just totally say the ideological Islam shit doesn't matter. It's just not relevant, okay? Even today, just say it. Stand strong with me, brother, okay? And fight against these Islamophobes. Fight.
arguable, but how do you see that sort of dynamic between one and the other?
For the last 150 years, there's been a debate within Islam, and it's a big and profound and powerful debate that's shaped the Muslim world today, certainly the Sunni Arab world in which we are embedded. And it's a debate about Muslim weakness, the sources of Muslim weakness, and what we do about Muslim weakness. And out of that debate grow some, pietistic, peaceful movements and also jihadi movements. And out of that debate, you get the kind of ideological movements of Hamas. You also get in the Shia sphere, this Iranian regime, this ideology that says that Islam has been weak for a long time. And this is something that really becomes a problem Muslim theologians talk about because of Western imperialism of the 19th century. But this ideology then says, well, if Islam is to wake up, the first obstacle it has to overcome in order to show that it is returning into history as a powerful agent in history, and therefore redeeming Islam, and therefore redeeming ultimately the world, is overcoming the Jews, is overcoming the smallest, weakest thing that ever pushed Islam back. The Iranian regime, this is, my message to Bernie Sanders doesn't fit in a little quip, it doesn't fit in a soundbite. We don't need American missiles in Gaza. That's not the kind of war Gaza is. The American arsenal, the American help is about Iran. And if Bernie Sanders can't explain to us why Iran wants to destroy Israel in the first place, why does Iran care about Israel? Why is Iran spending a double-digit percentage of its GDP so far with sanctions, with wars, with the billions it doesn't have invested in all these proxies, especially Hezbollah, the jewel in its crown? Why is it trying to destroy Israel? It has no border with Israel, it has no interest in Israel. And the answer is, it takes these ideas of Islam.
That's true, actually. It also shores up support. Like, if you could beat Israel, you'd be like the fucking champion. You could rally people around your shit.
Restorationism, and as the Jews being the first thing Islam has to overcome, absolutely seriously. And if we don't take it seriously, we're going to be surprised when they carry out on October 7. By the way, we know because Hezbollah has announced and Hamas has talked about that Hezbollah was planning on October 7 that was much larger and are very angry at Sinwar for ruining the surprise, so to speak. So we face enemies who will come at us no matter what. And if America chooses to then disarm us, the war is still going to come. It's just going to be worse because we're not going to have precise weapons. We're going to have blunt weapons we can build ourselves. That's my message there. You have to have that understanding of what the enemy actually wants when you're planning that to face them down, to have that conflict.
I feel like the Clash of Civilizations stuff, though, is actually a cover for not talking about the conflict in simpler, just...
Oh, shit. Is he going to say this is actually about Western imperialism? Where is he going to go?
Territory or nationalistic terms. You can go back to the decline of the Ottoman Empire, but it's much simpler to explain the rise of Hamas by pointing to a couple acute things. One being the inability of Arafat, who recognized Israel, and recognized the existence of the state of Israel.
Who cares?
And was engaged in long negotiations.
Not really, no.
And Hamas argued, you're being played by Israel here. Israel does not have, through the Oslo Accords or any other way, any serious commitment to actually reaching a two-state solution. And what they would point to is that immediately after Oslo signed, more settlements are built, more settlements are built, more settlements are built. You have elements of the, not including Netanyahu himself, saying that the existence of Hamas is extremely useful to the position of blocking a two-state.
That was like 20 years after the initiation of Oslo I, but I don't, okay.
Solution. And so I don't think you need the ideological stuff and the Ottoman Empire talk when you can actually say, no, the idea here was that there's a faction within the Israeli political system that opposed the creation of a Palestinian state and had the power to put obstacles in the way of the creation of that state, and is now, since the election, talking about simply annexing the West Bank, fully, and even talking further about southern Lebanon being northern Israel, and on and on. But so can't you consider this in a much more kind of a simple way than needing to go back to the Clash of Civilization stuff?
Jesus.
They're not mutually exclusive. I didn't talk about Clash of Civilizations. I talked about the single biggest theological discourse in the Muslim world in the last century and a half. I can give you specific names and specific theologians and the organizations they founded that produced this and the politics they're born from. Hamas was founded in 1987. Hamas doesn't go back a century and a half, but it's born on the ideas of the Muslim Brotherhood, and it talks that way. If you go to its mosques, you will hear those speeches. That's the first thing. The second thing is I'll tell you why what you call Clash of Civilizations, which is it's such a Western discourse. That's not how Muslims think of it. It's not how Jews think of it. It's not how Middle Easterners think of it. But the reason that these religious ideas matter is that I'll give you an example. You were talking about the Palestinian argument, and it's not an argument made by Hamas. It's an argument made by Palestinian diaspora elites who are trying to explain away everything that Hamas has done for 30 years to Westerners. But the argument that Israel never intended for Oslo to ever actually work out for the Palestinians. Rabin is assassinated in 1995 by an Israeli Jew opposed to the peace process. And that actually puts the left was about to lose that election because people were really afraid that Yasser Arafat, this arch terrorist who had hijacked airplanes and launched terror attacks that massacred kids, was now going to take over the West Bank. And Rabin's assassination increased the left's standing in the polls, and they were set to win the next election. And the next election, because the assassination comes in 96, and Hamas launches a series of suicide bombings in Jerusalem in the week leading up to the election that tilt the election by the narrowest margin in the history of an Israeli election, I think 30,000 votes, to Netanyahu. That's Netanyahu's first victory as a function of Hamas terror attacks. Barak comes back, the Labour Party comes back. He's already talking about a Palestinian state. He's at Camp David with Bill Clinton.
One of the big issues you run into even in Oslo I and Oslo II is Arafat never really pushed back against terrorism. He never really did. It seemed like he was always welcoming kind of the conflict that would result from said terrorism.
Cheating shared sovereignty on the Temple Mount. There's a 95% of the West Bank kind of Palestinian state. And that's when 140 suicide bombings over the next 3 years of the Second Intifada begin. And not only Hamas, also...
Yeah, there's definitely a real symbiosis between the kind of Palestinian
I want to suggest to you that the Israelis are not angels in this story. There are different camps. They fight constantly. And by the way, we don't have the kind of winner-takes-all election system that you have. You're going to be a Republican for 4 years. Everything is going to be Republican unless Congress switches halfway through. In Israel, every government in the history of Israel, there's never been a majority party, has been a coalition. And therefore, the Israeli government always works across purposes because different ideological groups are... By the way, the Italian government, we're seeing this now if you're following Italian politics, the Polish government, and we see this in these kinds of parliamentary systems. We had a government, the last government that Netanyahu ousted, actually had a left-wing minister of housing and a right-wing minister of housing and a left-wing minister of transportation, which means that the right-wing minister of housing was encouraging the building of more settlement homes, and the left-wing minister of transportation was refusing to pave roads to those settlement homes. The Israeli government is multiple forces operating in different directions. If the argument is if there's an Israeli right-winger in the room, then Israel doesn't mean it, then you're missing the fact that there was a culture war, the defining political civil war of the 90s, and even after the 90s. The withdrawal from Gaza was also part of this in 2005, was about getting out and creating space for the Palestinians and separating and not having an occupation anymore. And it failed miserably in rivers of blood, and it failed miserably in rivers...
I legit did not know that fact about the Israeli government. How diverse are the political parties in Israel? They are super diverse. It's super AIDS. The Israeli government is actual fucking cancer AIDS. Is there a way to see the current... I think this is just the government, right? Like the majority government. Does this even include the non? Wait, no. I think this is everybody, right? 32, 56. Wait, yeah, this is everybody, right? I think this is everybody, yeah. But it's like so many parties of like not many seats. It's just AIDS, cancer AIDS. Why is this bad? Because you hear about certain names and certain people, and you might think that like, oh, these people are just like wildly influential or like super huge people. But the reality is they'll just end up being like the leaders of like these smallish parties. Like, oh, this party has 14 seats, so Smotrich gets to have like these people end up getting positions of government because you have to hold on to these coalitions of like these really small parties. Sometimes it's just annoying. I think. I don't know. Or it seems AIDS to me, I guess. I don't know. People say our system is AIDS for different reasons, but.
Moving. Where are you going? This is not me, by the way. Oh, you're diving into the party. What did you link? Hold on. Give me a second. Yeah, that's my stream key. I gotta reset this fast. Be right
back. Okay, Jesus.
Of blood because of these religious ideas on the other side. So at some point, you're going to have to deal with these religious ideas on the other side. On October 7, again, let's imagine the Israelis are the worst people in the world. On October 7, Hamas didn't just massacre Israelis. It had built these tunnels for 17 years, and it had built them for one tactical purpose, so that anyone coming for Hamas has to cut through cities to do so. October 7 was 2 atrocities, not 1. And the larger one wasn't committed against Israel, it was committed against Gaza. And it was Hamas's literal strategy. And so if you don't address why is Hamas...
He's not going to hold on to this point, but I wish he would. I think I've asked this when I used to do these debates to multiple people. Will you admit that Hamas's goal is to induce as much civilian casualty as possible? Will you at least admit that? They never, ever admit it. He's hinting, he's kind of saying it a lot here, but I wish that he would like just force him to actually admit that.
Hamas willing to destroy Gaza. It's willing to destroy Gaza because it thinks that so much more is at stake, the redemption of Islam. Well, if you don't address that, if you don't deal with that, you're not going to fix the problem, you're not going to end the war.
Israeli commentators often say that the Western progressives don't take into account Palestine.
Or I guess it's not really a debate. It's just... Wait, this is titled Ryan Presses Israeli Journo on Endless War Plans. Maybe it's coming?
An agency. It's not, you know, they don't give Palestinians enough agency and judge them accordingly. But what about Israeli government agency? It's true that Hamas set up an enormous number of, a gigantic tunnel network, and that destroying the entire tunnel network could require destroying all of Gaza and tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of civilians along with it. What about Israeli agency? Like, they didn't have to do that, right?
Yeah.
What?
It's true that Hamas set up an enormous number of, a gigantic tunnel network, and that destroying the entire tunnel network could require destroying all of Gaza and tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of civilians along with it. What about Israeli agency? Like, they didn't have to do that, right?
Why is it that Palestinians have to like rape and pillage like they have to because of the material conditions, but Israelis don't have to counterattack? They could just not like.
Yeah, you're asking me, is this Israeli government or the last 8 Israeli governments massively at fault for thinking that you could hand money over to Hamas, watch it build those tunnel systems? We reported on those tunnel systems for 10 years. That was something you could just turn a blind eye to and sit around. Yeah, the Israeli crime, other than if you're running a country and you make a terrible strategic mistake at that scale. As I was waiting to come on, I heard the commentary about the Iraq War and Trump talking about when you lead a country and you make a mistake at that scale, let's imagine it's in good faith. Let's imagine you believed what you were saying. You own it. You own that mistake. And this leadership owns that mistake. And that most Israelis will tell you to the face, and most Israelis still want it gone. And it doesn't cost me anything to give that to you. I scream it in Hebrew. But the fundamental mistake they made was not believing Hamas. And the great tragedy for Gaza is that the Israelis absolutely believe Hamas now. And so when Hamas says we're going to destroy all of you and there'll be more October 7s, which it still says, the Israelis believe it. And that is a disaster for Gaza and it has to end or Gaza can't be rebuilt.
One question I've been really curious of from the Israeli perspective, and I know you've got to run pretty soon. We can put up E6 here. This is just one example. A reporter who works for, who does work for us and some other publications last night, posted on Twitter just what was becoming his nightly routine. So he's saying that like in an apartment right next to him, in Gaza, in Deir Bala, there's a baby that the mother he hears the mother saying to the baby, "I'm going to get you food. I'm going to get you fed tomorrow, I promise. And by the end of the night, there's still no food. And I don't know if people can even hear this, but he just took a little recording of what he hears constantly. And it's a baby who's just hungry and tired, but can't get fed and can't get the sleep that the baby needs. And I'm curious from the Israeli perspective, how, like, does any of this penetrate? We're talking about 2 million human beings.
Okay, hold on. I'm so sorry. I don't want to sound like lacking humanity. The baby is hungry and tired. And how do you know this? How do you know there's just a crying baby? Wait, what?
We can even hear this, but he just took a little recording of what he hears constantly, and it's a baby who's just hungry and tired, but can't get fed and can't get the sleep that the baby needs. And I'm curious from the Israeli perspective, how, like, does any of this penetrate? We're talking about 2 million.
Babies cry normally, right? Like babies normally cry, even the ones that are healthy and happy and like
million human beings who are living through some of the most abject torture, imaginable, and people who have absolutely nothing to do with October 7th. Is any of this breaking through?
Wait, what the fuck was that? I'm half surprised they didn't have captions underneath. Where it's like, the Zionist factions have destroyed my family. Every day the crossings are sieged by Israeli military occupants. Like,
through at all?
Do Israelis know that the Palestinian civilians are suffering? Absolutely.
Do they know, and how do they think about that? And how do they think about their role in that?
Yeah, that's a critical question. Many things are true all at once. There is a very clear knowledge that there is tremendous civilian suffering. Absolutely crystal clear. That's not something anybody's confused about. There is an absolute belief among Israelis that the world's moral emotions about this are not fake so much as fundamentally driven by bigotry against us. And the reason we think that is that it's worse in Sudan right at this minute, and none of you know and none of you care. And that's something you hear from a majority of Israeli Jews, certainly, and also I think quite a few Israeli Arabs, though probably not a majority. There's a sense that some of the discourse around Palestinian suffering has simply been untrue. There's been too much talk of starvation when there hasn't been actual starvation. And that doesn't mean they're not suffering disastrously. Families are literally for 13 months now moving between tent encampments in order to avoid airstrikes. There are no summer camps. There's nothing for kids to do. There's no schools. This is suffering at a serious and dramatic scale. But the invention around it of some kind of systemic system of atrocities that is purposeful and is not true and is meant to satisfy and to catalyze a kind of moral religious feeling that simply has nothing to do with the reality and has a lot more to do with Israel than with the suffering of the civilians. Because again, it's not the whataboutist argument. It's the selective outrage argument. You can't only think that way and only about these things. So first of all, they are suffering. They're suffering disastrously. And so I want to say they're not suffering as much as you think, but I don't want that to mean they're suffering at 8. I'm just arguing they're not suffering at 13, which is just simply not happening. They're not dying en masse. There isn't mass starvation. There are major problems in some places, and those problems are a huge problem. I need to say that before saying I've been very critical of the Israeli government. I, by the way, think that there's such complicated, difficult, painful ways, but we could solve a lot of these problems. For example, if we have to move them out of harm's way, we can move them into Israeli territory. There's a great fear in the Arab world that if you push them out of Gaza, it's the next Nakba, it's the next displacement. So just push them into the Negev. And then, what are they arguing? That we're moving them into Israel and not to? There are solutions. There are Israeli Arabs who volunteered for the war effort after October 7th. Hamas kidnapped and killed 50 Israeli Arabs. A Muslim girl, 18 years old, Aisha, we still don't know where she is and what's going on with her. There was a coming together of Jews and Arabs. And Arab Israelis are Palestinian. Their identity is this complicated intermingling of identities, but they include a layer that is absolutely Palestinian. And what if they ran some of that humanitarian aid on the Israeli side of a border for people displaced? And once you move them in, you can also check them, you can pull them out. There's so many ways to solve it. This is a government that in many, many ways has been incompetent. I'll give you just a tiniest example. Soldiers, veterans of the war, after 150 days, they missed a school year. An entire college year they just missed because they were off fighting a war. They come back and discover that they have back debt on the tuition payments for their dorms, and something the government was supposed to pay for but never did. This is a government that has proven incompetent for Israeli civil society. 60,000 Israelis were fled the north of bombardments of Hezbollah in the north over 13 months that shattered and destroyed cities. Entire 12 kibbutzim and a third of 2 cities are literally demolished to the point where they have to be destroyed before being rebuilt. And this government hasn't properly followed these people and provided them education for their kids and social support. We are facing a government that a lot of what you're seeing in Gaza, a lot of the reasons they haven't filled in with easy solutions, I don't mean to excuse it. This doesn't excuse it. It's just a different kind of a crime, is incompetence. It's just incapacity. So there are so many ways to deal with this better that I desperately wish Israel was dealing with it better. At the same time, I share the general Israeli view that I don't entirely trust the world's moral emotions, because give us a better way to fight this war. Give us an actual.
Last question, then I know you got to go. Speaking of that, I'm sure you saw these comments from the Jordanian farm.
Okay, this is going to be this is the question where he presses him. Okay, are you ready? This is going to be the one where he presses him. Here we go.
A minister, where he said, look, create a Palestinian state. Every single Arab nation will recognize Israel tomorrow, and we will coexist peacefully. Just create a Palestinian state. And so you're saying, give us a way to fight the war differently. It feels like Israel feels like its only way to survive is to fight forever. That it is in a dangerous neighborhood of people who want it gone.
Fuck. Why didn't we just create the Palestinian state? Fuck, it's just me. I need to have memes on fucking speed dial, okay? We just needed to create the Palestinian state. That's what we needed. Fuck. It was just that easy the whole time. Create the Palestinian state. Oh, fuck.
Driven by bigotry.
Until the ideologies were good.
They want them gone. They want driven into the sea. And so they have to fight forever. Despite countries like the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, on and on saying, create a Palestinian state. We're done with this. We want to move on with this. We'll recognize Israel. But why this clinging to the belief that war is the only path forward? And can war, sustainable, endless war, really be the basis for a safe and secure livelihood in a country that wants to be kind of Western? You want to have cafes and startups and clubs, and doing that under a constant war feels kind of unsustainable.
I feel like we're on different sides of some of these divides, and that's producing very, very good questions. So thank you for that really fundamental question. I don't mean that sarcastically. I mean it absolutely seriously. The simple point on the West Bank, the Israeli political left hasn't won an election since the Second Intifada, since 140 suicide bombings ended the Oslo peace process. And it hasn't really been able to tell Israelis a new story. And what you're asking, what the Jordanian foreign minister wishes, was that the Israeli public debate had another story. The Israelis currently believe that if we pull out of the West Bank, it'll go the way Gaza went. 5 years before pulling out of Gaza, we pulled out of South Lebanon after 18 years. That was basically our Afghanistan. We moved in to take care of terrorists, and then we ended up getting stuck for 18 years and bogged down and pulled out badly, and the bad guys took over when we left.
Yep.
That has turned into a disaster for us. Every single unilateral withdrawal turned into a disaster, and the attempt at a multilateral or bilateral peace ended in the Second Intifada with 140 suicide bombings. So the Israeli public, and I mean left-voting Israeli public that to this day wants a Palestinian state, genuinely believes that if we pull out of the West Bank for a Palestinian state, it'll end disastrously in rivers of blood, and we're going to have to retake it. The West Bank is the highlands that overlook all of our major cities. The West Bank shrinks us down to 9 miles wide in the middle. People hear about this place so much. I don't know if they understand just how tiny this little land in which Israelis and Palestinians live actually is. And so it feels existential, the question of pulling out of the West Bank. And again, to left-wingers who want a Palestinian state, to right-wingers there's even more so. And so the question of just found a Palestinian state.
How would you compare this guy's rhetorical approach to your own? I actually feel like it's really similar. It seems like he's like pretty on the kind of Israeli side for the war, but it seems like he's willing to say that the Netanyahu government has fucked up quite a bit, but also like the Arab and the Palestinian side has fucked up quite a bit as well. I mean, I think I agree with everything he said so far, basically.
In Gaza, sure, why not? It's easy. If there wasn't a Hamas there, it would have happened, and it would never have not happened. In the West Bank, it's a whole different question. I still think a two-state peace is possible, ironically, if we do something that the Jordanian foreign minister mortally opposes and absolutely hates, which is a kind of confederation between that state of Palestine and Jordan. What if, 3/4 of the West Bank, the Israelis can't be in the valley 9 miles wide, so we push in 1/4 of the West Bank. That's roughly what's going on in the Golan Heights. Israel doesn't control the Golan. It controls about 1/3 of the Golan to push back in 67 the Syrian artillery out of range of the towns in the valley that they were shelling freely throughout the 50s and 60s. So what if the Israelis push up the mountain range? They actually hold the high ground with the Palestinian state, but then 3/4 of the West Bank plus Gaza, all within a Jordanian confederation that leaves the Palestinian-Jordanian border wide open. They have an international border. The Jordanians are now the custodians of the holy site in Jerusalem that they actually care about, Al-Aqsa. Very little would have to change. Palestine wouldn't be this tiny little fractured state surrounded on all sides by this massively powerful Israel. As soon as you start seriously thinking about solutions, as soon as you solve the ideology problem that you don't want to deal with, and I understand why you don't want to deal with, it does sound like an Israeli escape hatch. Forget for a second the Israeli escape hatch. It might actually be the obstacle to everything. You might be able to yourself become prime minister of Israel. This will still stand in your way. And it'll stand in your way if the Israelis are evil. This still stands in the way. And so if we can solve the fundamental ideological problem, it's unbelievably easy to imagine actual political solutions on the ground that solve everybody's security problems, policy problems. We spent 30 years trying to finagle trying to sort of wend our way through the technicalities of the
I do disagree with this point, although maybe we would end up agreeing, or maybe he would convince me why I'm wrong here. I think that it's a mistake to assume that you have to solve the ideology problem. I think the ideology problem can come in line after a political solution if you're willing to do it. Like, they didn't solve the ideology problem before making peace with Egypt. They didn't solve any ideology problem before signing peace with Jordan. It was really brave political decisions being made and the collapse of the Soviet Union that led to this, like the signing of like these types of peace arrangements.
Policy problems, because that's how diplomats think. And we never figured out reconciliation, and we never figured out narratives that actually allow...
There is like a clashing of ideologies that has to be addressed, though, for sure.
Allow the other side to come in. You want to know the big problem with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? There are wonderful polls of Israelis and Palestinians with some of the best polled people in the world. And there was a poll about 6 weeks ago in which they polled both Israelis and Palestinians with an Israeli firm and a Palestinian firm. And they asked the same question: do you think the other side wants to exterminate us? And both sides responded 90% yes. I mean, literally, one side was 89, the other side was 92. Both sides think the other side simply wants to destroy them. That's the problem, and that's what makes solutions impossible. First has to come the reconciliation, then the political solutions are easy. As for fighting forever, look, we're speaking English. Every conversation in English about Israel is mediated through the sense that Jews are kind of like American Jews. We're not American Jews. I went to high school in Wisconsin. I apologize for the accent. I was born in
Hey, we can bond over that.
Finally, Glendale, Wisconsin.
Oh, nice, all right.
We're not American Jews. We are not people who have discovered over the last 120 years the promise of liberalism coming true. We're the other half of the Jews. We're the actual survivors of the Holocaust. We're the actual survivors of 1,300 pogroms. We are the millions. We're the 250,000 Jews stuck in DP camps 3 years after liberation. America liberated Dachau and Buchenwald in 1945. There's still Jews living there that nobody will take in anywhere on earth, including the United States, in 1948. They only start emptying out in 48, in May 1948, and those DPs are a quarter of the IDF in the 48 war. We're the Jews who had nowhere else to go in the world. Jeez. And we are the Jews for whom the experience of living on our sword. Your question to me is, can you fight forever? The UAE wants to not fight. That's wonderful. By the way, we've never fought with the UAE. There's never been a war. The Saudis, wonderful. I'm a big fan of peace and normalization with everybody. But they want it, and therefore it's possible. Iran wants us destroyed. We are the Jews who came out of a history of the 20th century in which the moment we stopped dying was when we could fight for ourselves. To the Israeli experience, everybody's living grandparents come from Iraq and Tunisia and Poland and Germany and Yemen. We are the Jews for whom the privilege of fighting for ourselves, of being able to fight for ourselves, is what redemption feels like. And so it's a great question from a Western perspective. Can't we end the war? That's not an option open to us. No Jew.
What? Okay, a minute and a half, and then Ryan is going to press this guy hard, I think.
Can live in Iraq, no Jew can live in Yemen. We are surrounded by societies with an ideological commitment to our destruction. I wish we weren't, but if they say it out loud, then if it affects their policy, and if Yemen is at war with Israel, really because of Palestinian rights, everything you know about the Houthis and the terrible civil war in Yemen and the 85,000 children starved to death.
What a stupid, anybody that says that Yemen, that the Houthis even give a fuck about the Palestinians, they don't. Historically, they haven't. They don't give a fuck. It's just a family that lived in the northern, like the fucking mountains of Yemen, and have just happened through a series of unfortunate wars and civil conflict have basically come to be like the leading faction, the leading family. The idea that these guys are like deeply invested in the Palestinian fucking plight is so hilariously fucking stupid.
Commitment to our destruction. I wish we weren't, but if they say it out loud, then if it affects their policy, and if Yemen is at war with Israel, really because of Palestinian rights, everything you know about the Houthis and the terrible civil war in Yemen and the 85,000 children starved to death.
Reach a ceasefire in Gaza and see if the Houthis lift the blockade, right?
Oh my God. First of all, is the Houthi blockade even still active? I thought the U.S. lifted that blockade. Also, what a crazy statement just given to people that are committing terrorist blockade actions. Like,
but it's about saving Hamas. It's not about Palestinian rights.
Exactly.
It's about the ultimate destruction of Israel, and they'll be there at Hamas's side of the next war too. And so we are willing to fight because we don't have another option. If the other side gives us another option, I promise you, this incompetent government being what it is, and despite what you might hear, we'll take that other option.
Okay. You're about to see the craziest 44-second press of your life.
Well, I do think that was clarifying, and I appreciate you coming on. Yeah. Avi Rettiger is a prominent Israeli journalist over at the Times of Israel. Love to have you back. We didn't get to get into the kind of politics of Netanyahu and Shin Bet and all that. It's fascinating and kind of broiling Israel.
You'll like what I have to say about that a lot more, I promise.
We'll do it again.
We'll get you back maybe after Thanksgiving.
We'll be a Good Friday show, actually.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, if you liked that video, don't forget to hit the...
Okay. What are the comments like? I don't know, probably just shitting on the Israeli dude. If this guy isn't the right, imagine what the right that Palestinians are dealing with is. I can't even listen to these people anymore. Dude's like, well, what are we supposed to do? Not kill civilians? The strange aspects of this guy's response is that it's Islam's fault, or America's fault, or Iran's fault, or everyone else's fault but Israel. This is like talking to a drug addict. Why were his statements unchallenged? I'm extremely disappointed that this Israeli journalist was allowed to propagate his lies without being challenged. I've never listened to an Israeli who is able to acknowledge how radical their society is. This journalist is no different. F's in chat for Assad. Rip. Military Operations Directorate enters the radio and television building to broadcast a statement announcing the end of Assad's rule.
Assad, quickly, come on, real quick. 30 seconds, fuck out of here. Just get your interview out of the way.
I don't care if you piss your pants. What are you dropping? I'm just dropping my bag. Oh, let's go over in the backdrop. Are we moving? We got to move for Hassan, actually. Hassan's too big, apparently.
Go over there. Go back there.
Yeah,
Okay.
Stay over here now.
Trust me.
She said trust her.
Hassan's not allowed to stand in front of the
You had
sponsors.
someone earlier who's the same height as you who beat you in basketball. I forget his name. I'm a piece of shit. Gotta pee.
Oh no. Oh no. Is that actually what happened? And it sounds like, no, we're fine. Let's go over there. And they're like, no. Come back over here. Oh no.
Wow, dude,
Is that
Hassan, quickly, come on, real quick. 30 seconds. Fuck out of here. Just get your interview out of the way. I don't care if you piss your pants. What are you dropping? I'm just dropping my bag. Oh, let's go over in the backdrop. Are we moving? We got to move for Hassan, actually. Hassan's too big, apparently.
Go over there. Go back there.
Yeah,
Okay.
Stay over here now. Trust me. She said trust her.
Hassan's not allowed to stand in front of the
You had
sponsors.
someone earlier who's the same height as you who beat you in basketball. I forget his name. I'm a piece of shit.
Jesus Christ?
Never stop! Dude, I can't see because the fucking dog is barking! Never stop! Dude, I can't see because the fucking dog is barking!
Not the dog barking. I thought there was a video of Miskip's crew wiping. I missed it. Rip. Maybe that was. Maybe it got deleted. Assad fled officially now? Oh, is that 100% official or? Oh. I don't know anything about World of Warcraft. Other than you're never supposed to push the backup button ever.
Oh fuck, that's a big one.
And people get really mad when you do that.
Oh fuck.
Yeah,
Okay.
pineapple. Yeah, what's wrong?
I don't have any.
Yeah, we're good. No, we're good. No. Just kill Beastmaster. We're good.
I'm good actually.
They're on me. They're talking to
No,
me.
there's a lie. There's a lie, guys.
I got. Okay, all right, run. Just run.
Run out. Yeah, run out.
I'm
Wait,
out of
are
mana.
we running? What's going on?
Yes, run out.
Wait, no, you're far away
Wait,
from me.
do you guys
my God.
realize
Oh
how
my
many
God,
mobs these are? Yo,
This is like casual, right? This is kind of like casual, but kind of like semi-casual, semi-serious. I'm only asking because I feel like these comms would make me want to end myself if this was like a super serious thing. I can't tell how.
Okay, all right, run. Just run.
Run out.
I know it's hardcore, but I'm just, is it like supposed to be super serious or just like fun serious? Or?
They're on me. They're talking to
Yo,
me.
there's a
Help.
lot. There's a lot, guys.
I got. Okay. All right. Run. Just run.
Run out, run out, run out, run out, run out.
running?
Yeah,
Hey, yo,
run out,
what?
run out.
I'm
Wait,
out. I'm
are
out.
we running? What's going on?
Yes, run out.
Wait,
Okay.
no, you're far away.
Wait,
From me.
do you
Oh
guys
my God.
realize
Oh
how
my
many
God,
mobs these are?
Oh, Dad!
On me.
Wait, yo, no, wait.
Liz, come back and help
Oh my
me.
God, he died. No, come on, miss. Guys, run out, guys. Guys,
Bro.
are you guys good? Are you?
Dude, Trav.
Trav, why did you AoE fear, man? Trav, why did you AoE fear, man?
There, we had.
Trav,
we had
no,
like
you
6
didn't.
on
Erupt.
us.
I can't. Eric is begging him not to run. Eric is begging him not to run because he knows he's gonna die.
Oh no.
Oh, my stomach. Oh, the pure pity. I feel so bad.
I'm out. I'm
No, please.
Well.
What? How am I like T1 in the
I'm also
slightest?
excited to announce that this stream is being brought to you with limited ads, thanks to all the articles written about Hassan.
I actually died 7 times in WoW. I'm
Who's
nothing like
not
Title
even
1.
in his fucking seat. Where is he?
Cutie admits she lost ads because of Hassan. I feel like this is a joke. I feel like that was just a joke. I don't think that was serious. I can't tell who's more autistic sometimes. You guys or...
What? How am I like T1 in the
I'm also
slightest?
excited to announce that this stream is being brought to you with limited ads, thanks to all the articles written about Hassan.
I actually died 7 times in WoW. I'm nothing
Who's
like
not
Title
even
1.
in his fucking seat. Where is he? Oh, he's talking.
Can't
to-
wait when that guy
talking
holding a
to
VR
Speed.
streamer tablet gets
We
replaced
do have
by
some of the
Tesla
biggest streamers in the world here tonight.
Mac's son makes a GPU with 2 built-in M2 SSD ports. Intel Arc B580 graphics card leverages unused PCIe lanes on the PCIe X16 slot. Jesus, okay. It's kind of weird. Wow, cool. This is supposed to be Assad's plane. Where is he going? Russia base and Tartus. Is that verified to be his plane? They linked it in chat, so it must be, right? Okay, well. You ever flown private? No, we can't all be like Hasanabi. All right, if you're bored, I wrote up a community guidelines on the subreddit that I'm soliciting feedback for. Hopefully this is posted in a couple days on the actual website. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow. Stay safe. Ribena, cappuccino, 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 my dude.